Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is David Novak. This is going to be my second reading of poems by Emily Dickinson. I will put a timestamp in the description box that you can skip to start with the poems. I'm going to read a few poems of my own. Why not take the leeway that is granted to one when one has a channel of one's own? So today is March 19th, 2025. This video should go up tomorrow. And it is a somewhat stressful time for my country, the United States of America. The moment long foreseen by some people has arrived, and the country has descended into full-fledged fascism. That was why I put my book Fascist Heart up there. That is from 2002. I will not be reading from that book, but I'm going to read a few poems from The Condemnation, which was 2003, and then segue into the poetry of Emily Dickinson. I will put a link in the description box as well to a recent video by Park Rose Permaculture, a TikToker and YouTuber that I follow daily to feel that I have some human contact amidst the turmoil of our days, in which she talks about how things have gone and incidentally points out that Chief Justice Roberts, guys like Mitch McConnell, created this beast. And as I say, it was fairly easily foreseeable, but for some reason they themselves did not foresee it, as she says. And once the beast has gotten out of the gates, it is hard to get it back in, the fascism beast. So people have watched video of these Venezuelan men that have been, contrary to orders of the court, been abducted, taken to a prison in El Salvador, not their country, with no due process. Habeas corpus has been revoked, and the administration, the Trump administration, has made it clear that it intends to heed not the word of the judicial branch. So first, the legislative branch caved and did nothing, and still does nothing, except for a few individual members here and there. And now the judicial arm of the government appears to be collapsing. The judicial branch cannot enforce anything. That lies with the executive. And so when it is the executive branch itself doing the misdeeds, well, who is to enforce the enforcer? Well, the answer, of course, is we the people, as Park Rose Permaculture will tell you. I say that as though that's a person's name. I think her name is Abigail or Angela. Angela, I think. It indeed lies with us, and we shall see what happens. These are dangerous times, of course, but there's that poem by Henry Reed, This is Global War. It's titled Lessons from the War. And at one point the line is, this is global war. And he says, well, my wars were global from the start, something like that. Well, these are dangerous times. For a poet like Emily Dickinson, they were always dangerous times as well. I read Emily Dickinson as a boy. Initially, her poem, Much Madness is Divinest Sense, really saved my life. I read that in the previous video. I will put a link to that in the description box, to the whole poetry reading. And I think probably it was that element of danger which resonated with me in Dickinson's poetry. In those days, I read the poems and didn't understand them at all. Somehow, with the passage of 40 years, 45 years even, I would guess, there's a lot more clarity. Not to say that I understand everything. I picked out poems sort of at first glance. I read all of this when I was young. This reading will contain poems that I know fairly well and a lot of poems that I don't. But before that, I thought that I would read a couple of my own poems. These Venezuelan men that were picked up, there was no evidence of any sort for them. And I forget what the first story was told by the administration, but as time has passed, the administration most recently has said, well, they were terrorists. They were planning some kind of terrorist activity, which we cannot disclose. We have so much evidence, but we cannot disclose any of the evidence. And of course, that kind of situation was easily foreseen. This one's, I gave it the title With Blinders on the Mind, but you really don't need any titles for the poems in this book. It was just something that I felt I should do. With blinders on the mind, none dare resist. Society but lumbers, cumbersome. Each theorist becomes a terrorist, and many opportunities are missed, preventing good, which thus may never come. With blinders on the mind, none dare resist. Much good is lost, by sunlight never kissed, whilst of those wishing good, thus they succumb. Each theorist becomes a terrorist. Tyranny of banality with fist, thus pummel opposition. All turn numb with blinders on the mind, none dare resist. Then, suddenly stampeding, men may list or stumble off a cliff, completely dumb. Each theorist becomes a terrorist when minds see nothing but the murky mist of foggy lies that make the spirit glum. With blinders on the mind, none dare resist. Each theorist becomes a terrorist. Last week, I think it was a student at Columbia University, perhaps, Mahmoud Khalil, was also abducted, has been charged with no crime. For all we know, committed no crime other than expressing his viewpoints. So people are being abducted, detained indefinitely in abeyance of due process without charges. The trial run for this, of course, occurred at Guantanamo under the Bush-Cheney regime, which this book was responding to. But I thought I would read a couple of more poems from here before I go into Dickinson, and you will see why. I take my shoes off. I take my shoes off, let that be my rank. Much madness has erupted in the land. I make retreat as circumstance outflank. It is a bitter potion that I drank, and yet my heart is light, so I may stand. I take my shoes off, let that be my rank, though I fight not with tractor-driven tank, no weaponry nor armor close to hand. I make retreat as circumstance outflank. In life it seem one's forced to walk the plank, prisoner in perpetual remand. I take my shoes off, let that be my rank. Although an outcast, proud to be a Yank, even as these my countrymen have banned. I make retreat as circumstance outflank. The times seem dire, much madness more than prank infiltrates all the land as fears expand. I take my shoes off, let that be my rank. I make retreat as circumstance outflank. That was number 64. And as those who are Dickinson fans should recognize the allusion there. This next poem, which is number 79, makes it even more explicit. My barefoot rank is better. My barefoot rank is better. So I walk along the grassy ways, through hills I hike, to glance at bugs, court breezes, with God talk. My feet are tough and calloused. Men may balk at such a trail to take, foreboding pike. My barefoot rank is better, so I walk, though men have learned to fly since Kitty Hawk. My primitive progression, yet I like to glance at bugs, court breezes, with God talk. I hear within the sky above birds squawk, a bird of prey, yet not today he strike. My barefoot rank is better, so I walk. My world is golden. Prospectors may stalk for gold. I have more wealth than all Klondike. To glance at bugs, court breezes, with God talk. No prisoner am I, my days to chalk. Inebriate of air, this drink I spike. My barefoot rank is better, so I walk, to glance at bugs, court breezes, with God talk. That was the pill, now comes the jam, in inverse of something Dylan Thomas once said. As I say, I'm not thoroughly familiar with these, and it may take a moment here and there for me to even figure out which poem on the page I intended. There are often many to a page. These little bookmarks, I tuck them in so tightly, they are hard to pull out. This is 466. 'Tis little I could care for pearls, who own the ample sea, or brooches when the emperor with rubies pelteth me, or gold who am the prince of mines, or diamonds when have I a diadem to fit a dome continual upon me. This is 472. Except the heaven had come so near, so seemed to choose my door, the distance would not haunt me so, I had not hoped before. But just to hear the grace depart, I never thought to see, afflicts me with a double loss, 'tis lost and lost to me. Number 478. I had no time to hate, because the grave would hinder me, and life was not so ample I could finish enmity. Nor had I time to love, but since some industry must be, the little toil of love, I thought, be large enough for me. I think I might have. This is number 498. I envy seas whereon he rides. I envy spokes of wheels, of chariots that him convey. I envy crooked hills that gaze upon his journey. How easy all can see what is forbidden utterly as heaven unto me. I envy nests of sparrows that dot his distant eaves. The wealthy fly upon his pane, the happy, happy leaves, that just abroad his window have summer's leave to play. The ear rings of Pizarro could not obtain for me. I envy light that wakes him, and bells that boldly ring, to tell him it is noon abroad, myself be noon to him. Yet interdict my blossom, and abrogate my bee, lest noon in everlasting night drop Gabriel and me. This is number 508. I'm seated, I've stopped being theirs. The name they dropped upon my face with water in the country church is finished using now. And they can put it with my dolls, my childhood, and the string of spools I've finished threading too. Baptized before without the choice, but this time consciously of grace, unto supremest name, called to my full, the crescent dropped, existence's whole arc filled up with one small diadem. my second rank, too small the first, crowned, crowing on my father's breast, a half unconscious queen, but this time adequate, erect, with will to choose or to reject, and I choose just a crown. $5.10. It was not death, for I stood up, and all the dead lie down. It was not night, for all the bells put out their tongues for noon. It was not frost, for on my flesh I felt sirocco's crawl, nor fire, for just my marble feet could keep a chancel cool. And yet it tasted like them all, the figures I have seen, set orderly for burial, reminded me of mine. As if my life were shaven and fitted to a frame, and could not breathe without a key, and 'twas like midnight some, when everything that ticked has stopped, and space stares all around, or grisly frosts, first autumn morns, repeal the beating ground. But most like chaos, stopless, cool, without a chance or spar, or even a report of land to justify despair. I think I'll do the next one as well. If you were coming in the fall, I'd brush the summer by with half a smile and half a spurn, as housewives do a fly. If I could see you in a year, I'd wind the months in balls and put them each in separate drawers for fear the numbers fuse. If only centuries delayed, I'd count them on my hand, subtracting till my fingers dropped into Van Diemen's land. If certain, when this life was out, that yours and mine should be, I'd toss it yonder like a rind and take eternity. But now, uncertain of the length of this that is between, it goads me like the goblin bee that will not state its sting. This is 5:19. 'Twas warm at first, like us, until there crept upon a chill like frost upon a glass, till all the scene be gone. The forehead copied stone, the fingers grew too cold to ache, and like a skater's brook, the busy eyes congealed. It straightened, that was all. It crowded cold to cold. It multiplied indifference, as pride were all it could. And even when with chords 'twas lowered like a weight, it made no single nor demurred, but dropped like adamant. I'll give the next one here. I started early, took my dog, and visited the sea, the mermaids in the basement, came out to look at me. And frigates in the upper floor extended hempen hands, presuming me to be a mouse aground upon the sands. But no man moved me till the tide went past my simple shoe, and past my apron and my belt, and past my bodice too, and made as he would eat me up, as wholly as a dew upon a dandelion's sleeve. And then I started too. And he followed close behind. I felt his silver heel upon my ankle, then my shoes would overflow with pearl. Until we met the solid town, no one he seemed to know, and bowing with a mighty look at me, the sea withdrew. Well, let me do 522. Had I presumed to hope, the loss had been to me a value, for the greatness' sake, as giants gone away. Had I presumed to gain a favor so remote, the failure but confirm the grace in further infinite. 'Tis failure not of hope, but confident despair, advancing on celestial lists with faint terrestrial power. 'Tis honor, though I die, for that no man obtain, till he be justified by death. This is the second gain. Easy to stumble. There was greatness with an apostrophe and then no S and then sake. So do you say that with for the greatness' sake or greatness' sake? I don't know. I suspect I should not have added that extra syllable. 528. Mine by the right of the white election, mine by the royal seal, mine by the sign in the scarlet prison, bars cannot conceal. Mine here in vision and in veto, mine by the grave's repeal, titled, confirmed, delirious charter, mine long as ages steal. $536. The heart asks pleasure first, and then excuse from pain, and then those little anodynes that deaden suffering, and then to go to sleep, and then, if it should be the will of its inquisitor, the privilege to die. $538. 'Tis true, they shut me in the cold, but then themselves were warm, and could not know the feeling 'twas, forget it, Lord, of them. Let not my witness hinder them in heavenly esteem. No paradise could be conferred through their beloved blame. The harm they did was short, and since myself who bore it do, forgive them even as myself, or else forgive not me. And skipping one to 540. I took my power in my hand and went against the world. 'Twas not so much as David had, but I was twice as bold. I aimed my pebble, but myself was all the one that fell. Was it Goliath was too large, or was myself too small? (544). The martyr poets did not tell, but wrought their pang in syllable, that when their mortal name be numb, their mortal fate encourage some. The martyr painters never spoke, bequeathing rather to their work, that when their conscious fingers cease, some seek in art the art of peace. Ah, 553. One crucifixion is recorded only. How many be is not affirmed of mathematics or history. One Calvary exhibited to stranger, as many be as persons or peninsulas. Gethsemane is but a province in the being's center. Judea for journey, or crusades achieving too near. Our Lord indeed made compound witness, and yet there's nearer crucifixion than that. (555). Trust in the unexpected. By this was William Kidd persuaded of the buried gold, as one had testified. Through this, the old philosopher, his talismanic stone, discerned, still withholden, to effort undivine. 'Twas this allured Columbus, when Genoa withdrew, before an apparition baptized America. The same afflicted Thomas, when deity assured 'twas better the perceiving not, provided it believed. And the next. The brain within its groove runs evenly and true, but let a splinter swerve, 'twere easier for you to put a current back when floods have slit the hills and scooped a turnpike for themselves and trodden out the mills. (561). I measure every grief I meet with narrow, probing eyes. I wonder if it weighs like mine or has an easier size. I wonder if they bore it long, or did it just begin. I could not tell the date of mine, it feels so old a pain. I wonder if it hurts to live, and if they have to try, and whether, could they choose between, it would not be to die. I note that some, gone patient long, at length renew their smile, an imitation of a light that has so little oil. I wonder if, when years have piled some thousands on the harm that hurt them early, such a lapse could give them any balm. Or would they go on aching still through centuries of nerve, enlightened to a larger pain in contrast with the love? The grieved are many, I am told. There is the various cause. Death is but one, and comes but once, and only nails the eyes. There's grief of want and grief of cold, a sort they call despair. There's banishment from native eyes in sight of native air. And though I may not guess the kind correctly, yet to me a piercing comfort it affords in passing Calvary, to note the fashions of the cross and how they're mostly worn, still fascinated to presume that some are like my own. This one's stuck in here real good. $5.69. I reckon when I count at all, first poets, then the sun, then summer, then the heaven of God, and then the list is done. But looking back, the first so seems to comprehend the whole. The others look a needless show, so I write poets all. Their summer lasts a solid year. They can afford a sun the East would deem extravagant, and if the further heaven be beautiful as they prepare for those who worship them, it is too difficult a grace to justify the dream. $5.76. I prayed at first, a little girl, because they told me to, but stopped when qualified to guess how prayer would feel to me if I believed God looked around each time my childish eye fixed full and steady on his own in childish honesty, and told him what I'd like today, and parts of his far plan that baffled me, the mingled side of his divinity. And often since, in danger, I count the force 'twould be to have a God so strong as that, to hold my life for me, till I could take the balance that tips so frequent now. It takes me all the while to poise, and then it doesn't stay. $5.79. I had been hungry all the years. My noon had come to dine. I trembling drew the table near and touched the curious wine. 'Twas this on tables I had seen when turning hungry home. I looked in windows for the wealth I could not hope for mine. I did not know the ample bread, 'twas so unlike the crumb the birds and I had often shared in nature's dining room. The plenty hurt me, 'twas so new. Myself felt ill and odd, as berry of a mountain bush transplanted to the road. Nor was I hungry, so I found that hunger was a way of persons outside windows the entering takes away. This is quite well known. 585. I like to see it lap the miles and lick the valleys up, and stop to feed itself at tanks, and then prodigious step around a pile of mountains and supercilious pier in shanties by the sides of roads, and then a quarry pair to fit its ribs and crawl between, complaining all the while in horrid hooting stanza, then chase itself downhill. And neigh like Boanerges, then punctual as a star, stop docile and omnipotent at its own stable door. As another booktuber is wont to say, I can understand that, but some of you younger folks may not. 613. They shut me up in prose, as when a little girl they put me in the closet, because they liked me still. Still, could themselves have peeped and seen my brain go round, they might as wise have lodged a bird for treason in the pound. Himself has but to will, and easy as a star, abolish his captivity and laugh, no more have I. Good words to keep in mind in these days, I think. Uh, 621. I asked no other thing, no other was denied. I offered being for it, the mighty merchant sneered. Brazil, he twirled a button without a glance my way. But, madam, is there nothing else that we can show today? How about 623? It was too late for man, but early yet for God. Creation impotent to help, but prayer remained our side. How excellent the heaven, when earth cannot be had. How hospitable then the face of our old neighbor God. Hmm. 625. 'Twas a long parting, but the time for interview had come before the judgment seat of God, the last and second time. These fleshless lovers met, a heaven in a gaze, a heaven of heavens, the privilege of one another's eyes. No lifetime on them, apparelled as the new unborn, except they had beheld born infiniter now. Was bridal e'er like this, a paradise, the host, and cherubim and seraphim, the unobtrusive guest. I was glancing ahead to this other, and I don't think I had planned it, but I will do it. 627. The tint I cannot take is best, the color too remote, that I could show it in bazaar, a guinea at a sight. The fine, impalpable array that swaggers on the eye, like Cleopatra's company, repeated in the sky. The moments of dominion that happen on the soul, and leave it with a discontent too exquisite to tell. The eager look on landscapes as if they just repressed some secret that was pushing like chariots in the vest. The pleading of the summer, that other prank of snow, that cushions mystery with tulle, for fear the squirrels know. Their graspless manners mock us until the cheated eye shuts arrogantly in the grave another way to see. $6.40. I cannot live with you. It would be life, and life is over there, behind the shelf. The sexton keeps the key to putting up our life, his porcelain like a cup. Discarded of the housewife, quaint or broke, a newer Sèvres pleases, old ones crack. I could not die with you, for one must wait to shut the other's gaze down. You could not. And could I stand by and see you freeze without my right of frost, death's privilege? Nor could I rise with you, because your face would put out Jesus, that new grace, grow plain and foreign on my homesick eye, except that you than he shone closer by. They'd judge us how, for you served heaven, you know, or sought to. I could not, because you saturated sight, and I had no more eyes for sordid excellence as paradise. And you were lost, I would be, though my name rang loudest on the heavenly fame. And were you saved, and I condemned to be where you were not, that self were hell to me. So we must meet apart, you there, I here, with just the door ajar, that oceans are, and prayer, and that white sustenance, despair. I fear that I transposed a couple of words there. Why don't we give this one again? I cannot live with you. It would be life, and life is over there, behind the shelf. The sexton keeps the key to putting up our life, his porcelain like a cup, discarded of the housewife, quaint or broke. A newer Sèvres pleases, old ones crack. I could not die with you, for one must wait to shut the other's gaze down. You could not. And could I stand by and see you freeze without my right of frost, death's privilege? Nor could I rise with you, because your face would put out Jesus's, that new grace, grow plain and foreign on my homesick eye, except that you than he shone closer by. They'd judge us how, For you served heaven, you know, or sought to. I could not, because you saturated sight, and I had no more eyes for sordid excellence as paradise. And were you lost, I would be, though my name rang loudest on the heavenly fame. And were you saved, and I condemned to be where you were not, that self were hell to me. So we must meet apart, you there, I here, with just the door ajar that oceans are, and prayer, and that white sustenance, despair. $6.44. You left me, sire, two legacies, a legacy of love. A heavenly Father would suffice, had he the offer of. You left me boundaries of pain, capacious as the sea, between eternity and time, your consciousness and me. $6.59. That first day when you praised me sweet, and said that I was strong, and could be mighty if I liked, that day, the days among, glows central like a jewel between diverging golds, the minor one that gleamed behind, and vaster of the worlds. $1862 must have been quite a year. So, at any rate, that is where things stand. A bit longer than I would have liked, but I felt like adding that bit of extra at the beginning. So I will continue on with this. Having not read Dickinson in so long, I am finding it touching me more deeply than I could have imagined. In and among those poems, the ones that I know very well, they have just informed me. They have become part of me. But all of these others that I'm reading for only the second time in 40 years, or whatever it is, it really, I have the feeling of, like when you see the news story of sisters who were separated. It happened occasionally with people that survived the Holocaust in childhood, and then chance threw them back together. They found each other when they were 80 years old, something like that. That is the feeling that I've been getting from this renewed acquaintance with Emily Dickinson. So it may be a few more of these readings. It feels so much more significant to me than those absolutely beautiful and wonderful poems by William Butler Yeats. This just cuts deeper. I mean, genuinely you do feel like your head's been lopped off. So thank you very much for stopping by my channel, and keep your eye peeled. Perhaps there will be more coming.